Hey, what's up everybody? It's Hamid here. I'm making this video to kind of address some of the concerns that people had with why I was hospitalized over the last week, and also just kind of tell my story and my journey, from having this situation happen to me back in 2023. So back in 2029, I left college, decided to pursue soccer at a higher level, at a club level. So I moved back home, started traveling to Atlanta to play soccer. I played with a team out there called Jinga Atlanta. We ended up winning the 2020 Nationals, going undefeated the entire season. I was very young, so it was a big learning point for me. I didn't get too many minutes, but it was a good experience. It was definitely a good experience. The next season, I decided to transfer to MOBA. So both of my older brothers actually joined me, Rajai and Shajad, and then one of our close friends, Eves. So we were all traveling up to Peachtree to play, which was a little bit further, but having them around made it a lot easier. Still had no issues with my health at that point. Transition to 2023, I'm playing with the Rovers. This is my second season, so I've earned a spot. My brothers have stopped traveling with me to play. They decided to pursue different ventures, but I still wanted to play soccer, so I ended up getting my own car. I was working at the time, working at warehouses, restaurants, whatever I needed to do to get by, and I was traveling to Atlanta to play soccer. So my schedule was like tight all the way down to the T, because I was either working, training, sleeping, recovering, or playing soccer. I didn't have any health concerns, but going into this season, I started to see my condition diminish. We're playing in the summer in Atlanta, so the heat is going to get to you, especially if you're on like hot black turf. For me, after like 45 minutes in the game, or even sometimes like 20 minutes into the game, I'll be feeling fatigued. I might feel dizzy. I might feel like my feet are burning. I might feel like I need to put water in my eyes because my vision's getting a little weird. So I started having these symptoms. I couldn't tell what it was, and that started affecting my starting spot. So at that point it was concerning, but I thought I could just maintain it with my daily habits, things that I could control. So I started watching what I was eating, started making sure I was recovering, make sure I was hydrated during the games, different things like that. And I finished the season. In July 2023, I ended up getting tonsillitis, so I went to the hospital to try to deal with that, and they gave me some steroids. The next day I started having cramping in my belly, which was very bad. So I came back, I was like, yo, these medications you guys gave me are like messing up my stomach. I don't know what it is. Can I get some different medications? That was kind of concerning for them. They started asking, did I go to the bathroom? And I realized I actually didn't go to the bathroom for like a week now, or at least a few days. So they started doing some blood tests, and that's when they diagnosed me with acute kidney failure. So they told me that my kidneys were barely functioning at this point, that they're gonna have to admit me to the hospital. But hopefully once they rehydrate my body, give me some IVs, that I'll be able to, recover, most of my kidney function and be released out the hospital. So I was there for a few days, and that's when we found out that like the condition was actually long-term. So once they rehydrated my body, nothing changed in my kidney function. It barely went up, just a few points. So that gave us the indication that this is actually something else that's been long-term. That's kind of at the point where they were telling me I needed to start doing dialysis, and where I got introduced to what that was. For those of you who don't know, dialysis is basically a machine that functions in doing the same thing that your kidney does. So your kidney is working 24 hours to filter out the blood of your body, or filter out the waste out of your body. So the dialysis machine, basically, you hook it up to a port on your body that's connected to a large artery, and the blood goes out, filters through the machine, and it comes back in. It's very painless, but sometimes it can make you fatigued. Sometimes you might feel lightheaded if your blood pressure gets too low. But for the most part, it's a 3-hour process. You kind of just go there, sit in the chair for 3 hours. They hook you up, and then you go home. You have to do that 3 times a week. So that's what they were telling me that was upcoming for me. So I was like taken aback, had some questions about, my soccer. Was I going to be able to play, etc.? They told me I was, but I have to work around this schedule. So I started doing that, but I was working around the schedule. They told me there was a second option for me to do peritoneal dialysis. So this is when you're doing dialysis at your own convenience at the house. It's longer. You have to do it for actually 8 hours. Instead of working with your blood, the same fluid that's inside the machine is now being put into your belly, into your peritoneal, and you let it sit there for an hour, 35 minutes, and then you drain it out. So you put that fluid in your belly, it grabs all the waste, you let it drain out. I still was using the bathroom perfectly fine. I was peeing, I was pooping and stuff, but just the waste was still building up in my body. So I decided to transition to that so that I can do that during the nighttime for 8 hours while I sleep, and then still in the daytime work or do soccer and have a flexible schedule to continue to develop. I did that for an entire year, but the season upcoming was actually here in my hometown. They started a USL2 team with Athens United. I was very excited, was looking forward to it. I had some doubts because of my condition, but that I wasn't gonna let that stop me. So going into tryouts was like my first trial of like how will my body function during this process, and I had to work my ass off. I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty hard to play back-to-back scrimmages for I think 2 to 3 days, but I was able to do it, and I earned a spot on the team. The coach told me I was probably gonna have a leader role, which was kind of like very exciting for me. At the time, he didn't even know I had the condition. That's how I kept it. Like, I kept myself covered, and I just worked my ass off. So nobody really knew except for those who were like very close to me, the girl I was dating at the time, and one of my close friends, JoJo, at that field. Those are the only people who really knew about my condition. Eventually, I ended up telling the coach, and as the season went on, he addressed the team and told them about the situation. That was my first time like being in that position, being very vulnerable to all of my teammates. Usually it's like a competitive, friendly environment. And then now I'm feeling like I'm in this role where what I'm going through can be used as a motivation, but also feeling like, you want to compete, but people are going easy on you because you have a catheter in your chest. One of the biggest things for me that season was recovery. I spent a lot of time taking ice baths, trying to just recover from the practices. A couple of things I was going through was dizziness from being heavily medicated, soreness from just fatigue of, overworking my body and not being able to produce protein, not being able to produce vitamin D, leg swelling. My legs were swollen most of my practices and games, so I actually could feel the weight of my legs. That's how much they were swelling during that time. And it was just a lot to go through that season, but still I was diligent. And then at one point I wasn't playing as well as I wanted to, so I decided to go kind of twice as hard. I decided to double up my recovery, stay after practice and get some shots in, working on my technique, and then even on my off days work on like juggling, something simple, just to make sure I'm touching the ball at least. One of the highlights of the season was playing against Atlanta United 2. That was a great opportunity. I was excited for it when I found out about it. Luckily, the week before, I was just balling out, going crazy on the attack, scoring goals. So I earned a starting spot. Going into that game, I was excited, but the week before that game, I also ended up getting a hernia. So on top of everything that I'm already dealing with, now I have this new thing that's bothering me, which is a hernia on my groin. Nobody knows about this. Nobody knew about this during the time, but I just kind of like was playing through it. So going into that game, even though it was a great experience and I'm very grateful for it, I didn't play to my best of ability, and that's something that like even today I still think about, like what could have happened. How could I have played if I was at an actual good standpoint health-wise. But I try not to look negatively on that experience. I'm still grateful for it. So flash forward to a week ago, I'm starting to take a break from soccer. I'm still doing a little bit of refereeing, but I'm pursuing making money online. I'm pursuing art, I'm pursuing music, I'm pursuing videography and getting hired to actually do videography. So this is a new venture for me. Everything is kind of going good. And then I start having issues completing my dialysis. So with the fluid, when you fill it up, you have to let it sit for a while and then you drain it out. At this point, it wasn't draining. I would be up in the middle of the night, pretty much most nights, messing with the machine, trying to get it to drain, trying to reset the machine. But like it just kept having issues. So it either is an issue with the machine or it's an issue with my body. I was pretty sure it was an issue with my body at that time. So I talked to the doctor. They said we'll schedule something, but just stop doing your dialysis. So I stopped doing my dialysis, but that means waste is building up in my body, during those days that I'm not actually doing it, which can cause heart problems. Like your heart can literally stop. Just a whole list of problems can happen. So I ended up going to the doctors and they told me to schedule this, in a week in advance. So I'm like, okay, my legs started to get swollen again. But then just the other day, I started feeling really bad. Like my stomach started having these very sharp pains all throughout. It felt like I don't know, maybe somebody put some needles in my stomach. So yeah, I went to the hospital and they were telling me that we're probably gonna have to remove that catheter because it's infected. They told me I was gonna have to get a temporary catheter put on my groin. So this is kind of like an IV, or like a IV that you would just put on your arm. It's like a needle, so it's not too invasive. But it still was kind of like a surgical procedure. So, I went under, did that process of putting that in. It was kind of uncomfortable because it's like right on your groin. And that would allow me to do the blood dialysis, at least in the meantime, until I can get a more stable solution. So I got that installed, but then they wanted to remove this one. So I had to do a second surgery to remove the catheter that I was using for the year prior while I was playing soccer and stuff like that. So they removed that catheter. That one was one of the more extreme surgeries. I'm still recovering from that. And then they decided to remove that groin one and then put one in my chest that will last a lot longer. The groin one was just a temporary one that only lasts about a week at the most. So just to make sure that I was doing my dialysis until they could put this one in that lasts for months and months on. So that was basically all my procedures I did then at the hospital. My medications changed a little bit, but I'm out and I'm feeling good. Ready to keep working and continue to do videos and stuff like that. Who knows where the soccer thing will go? I can't spend time right now like thinking about it too much because it's not in reach. I can still coach, I can still referee right now, but as far as playing soccer and enjoying it on a higher level, it's not in my reach right now. So I'm still staying positive, I'm still staying hopeful. I'm still trying to keep my connections with that because, eventually if I do get a transplant, hopefully in the next 2 months, I'm expecting, I will not need to do dialysis. I'll be more free. My body will feel a lot better. I will have a kidney, so my body will, filter out itself. I'll be taking still medications to maintain that kidney, but hopefully like my recovery rate, things like that will be a lot better. So maybe I can start pursuing, physical endeavors like playing soccer. But yeah, that's my story, man. I'm out the hospital. I'm feeling better. Had a few surgeries, but I'm recovering well, man. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Peace. It's Hamid here. Yee.